Hey toy fans, and in this video, Star Wars toy fans, which is me. I'm a Star Wars toy fan. Yes, I've worked in the toy industry, but I have not worked for Hasbro, and I have not worked on Star Wars 3 3/4 action figures. But I do collect them. I'm a huge, passionate fan of this line in my personal life, and I'm making a video kind of, putting together notes I've had just from 30 years of collecting these figures. Pretty much most everything in this video is public knowledge, but I want to kind of put it all in one place. This is a video about Star Wars figures we're not going to get. And I'm not talking about figures like Jocasta Nu, the librarian. This was a figure that Hasbro had once said they weren't interested in doing, and there's no better way to get fans to demand a figure be made than to say we're not interested in making that figure. So, of course, as soon as Hasbro said they weren't interested in making it, they had to make it. And it turned out awesome. It was actually a really cool figure that Brian's Toys got the exclusive of, and came with a cool Dooku bust, and she's an awesome figure. And I'm not talking about figures like the rocket-firing Boba Fett that was pulled for safety reasons. That's a whole other issue, and there's plenty of YouTube videos covering that. So let's jump into our fun top 10. So the first up is the Tonica Sisters. Probably one of the most demanded Cantina characters, if not Star Wars characters, of all time to be made into an action figure. So much so that fan customs exist, showing what she would look like in the vintage line or the modern line. And, hey, why not? She's a really cool female, and she's in the Cantina, so that's kind of two things that appeal to collectors. Well, this has been one of those odd ones that they don't make as a figure, simply because the actress who played the Tonica sister had asked Hasbro for royalties. She did an interview on a great podcast called Cantina Chatter and basically spells all of this out. She approached Hasbro, Kenner, and said, hey, you made a Galoob figure of me, and I would, in the Micro Machine line, and I would like royalties for that. And the response was, well, it was much easier to just not make a figure of her. So, it's not like a loophole exists, because she might appear in, Legends material like Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, where I think actually it was said that the Tonica Sisters in the Cantina were not the Tonica Sisters in the Cantina. It's a mess. Legends is dense. And, she appeared in the Clone Wars in a wanted poster on a screen. That's not going to do it. So, basically, yes, the actress calling Hasbro and asking for royalties kind of closed the door. Next up, we have specific Imperial Officers, like Prajji here, who was the one who asked Darth Vader, or rather told him that the Death Star plans were not in the main computer from A New Hope. And essentially, this is kind of a spiral from the same thing with the Tonica Sisters, that back in the day, back when the original trilogy was made, all of the background actors did not sign off on likeness rights. So chasing down a lot of these actors now is kind of a term where the squeeze isn't necessarily worth the juice. Where the effort to try to find them and get them to sign off on likeness rights, it's a lot of work. It's not, just simply as just making the figure and approaching them. So while we get, cool Imperial Officers, the likelihood of getting specific ones, especially from the original trilogy, is a little less and less as time goes by, as it gets harder and harder to track down some of those actors. So, much like in the vintage line, when we had a single Imperial Officer that came on a card that had General Veers, any future Imperial Officers will just be Imperial Officer. Now, it doesn't mean we won't get Grand Moff Tarkin. He's a major character, and that's a whole other story. But this is really just about those background characters that maybe have one line or no lines. And essentially, not to repeat myself too much, but kind of the same deal with the rebel officers from from Empire and A New Hope and Jedi. Now, I mean, Hasbro's have come up with a really great solution. They have a new figure that has a removable faceplate, which is amazing. I love that they have that in the Black Series. But kind of like with Lego, where there's no likeness rights, with action figures, you need likeness rights. So, kind of same thing. Another one that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to long-term fans is they know that Hayden Christensen replaced Sebastian Shaw as Anakin Skywalker, as the ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. And even though, over the years we've had Anakin Skywalker figures based on Sebastian Shaw, ever since that change was made, that is now the official way it is. And so all future Anakin ghosts are Hayden Christensen ghosts, not Sebastian Shaw ghosts. Which, hey, that's the way George Lucas wants it, and he is the creator of this story, this trilogy, trilogy of trilogies. So I really treasure this Anakin doll I have from like 15 years ago, before the change happened. It's one of my favorite toys, but no more. This is an interesting one. So Bob Holden, who was the Yavin officer, the bald one with the mutton chops, unlike the Imperial officers and Rebel officers, he actually didn't want a figure made of him. So while he appears in a couple scenes, like he's in the Yavin ceremony here, right behind R2-D2 there to the far left, and I don't know, just visually he always makes me laugh. I love Mutton Chop Guy before I learned what his name was, because everyone in Star Wars gets a background name. But yes, he just wasn't interested in having figures made, and that's why we're not going to get a figure made of him. I mean, I don't think he's a crucial character. Maybe to me he was. I really wanted one, but hey, que sera. So what is an Ahsogen? I mean, we all know lots of Star Wars aliens, right? You've got your Ewoks and your Gamorrean guards, and even Hammerhead species, has a proper name. The Ahsogians are these guys, the ETs that appeared in Episode 1 in the Senate montage, or like off in the distance in the background of the Senate. And yes, no, we are not getting action figures based on Ahsogians from Hasbro anytime soon, because, well, E.T. is owned by Universal, and this was just done as kind of an inside joke between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And there's tons of YouTube videos debating whether or not, if E.T. exists in Star Wars, does that mean that he exists in the real world, or does Star Wars exist in the real world? And that's a YouTube video for another time. But essentially, there were Star Wars action figures shown in E.T., and that was kind of a joke between, again, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. And you even saw E.T. in the Halloween scene seeing a kid dressed up as Yoda and approaching him. And it kind of almost reverse pays off that, is this because he recognizes somebody from his galaxy? So yes, Universal owns E.T., so we are not going to see Ahsogians made as action figures. So this is the last category that sort of follows up that Imperial Officer and Rebel Trooper, the background ones, and it's the non-masked aliens from Mos Eisley and from the Cantina. Characters like the Prophetess here, who is just a human in a robe, and even though she got a whole backstory for the 0.03 seconds she has on screen, that and I've said Hasbro, by the way, this is not about Hasbro, this is really anyone making Star Wars anything. So, figures, pops, posters, dinnerware, bath toys, whatever. It regardless of category. This is not at all a video about Hasbro. It's about Star Wars. We all love Star Wars. And the beggar, right? We all love the beggar who appeared for 0.02 seconds in Mos Eisley. And yeah, same thing. Likeness rights, tracking down these actors after 40 years is just, the squeeze isn't worth the juice. But does it really matter? I mean, do we need this guy as an action figure? I can live without it. Alright, so everyone remembers the Cantina Bar Tender, right? You don't remember this one? Well, yeah, that's because it was only in the holiday special, and this one was played by the lovely Bea Arthur, who you probably more likely recognize from this. She was one of the Golden Girls, which, makes her one of the coolest characters ever, or coolest actresses. But yes, Bea Arthur played the bartender from the holiday special, and there really isn't merchandise based on the holiday special. So even though she was in it, and we always tell people not to watch it, don't watch the holiday special, it's not worth it. And I ignored that warning myself, and I watched it, and now I want that hour and a half of my life back. It is as insane as people say, an entire scene in Wookiee, and Imperial officers staring at you, and it's weird. But, the highlight probably was this cantina scene, but alas, yeah, holiday special toys not coming. Alright, so fake Wedge. Does everyone know about this one? This was essentially before Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge. Wedge was played by another actor, and he had all of Wedge's lines, which were then redubbed by Dennis Lawson. And the actor Colin actually went on to appear at Star Wars conventions as kind of fake Wedge. He claimed his moment in Star Wars history. But since Wedge has gone on to become a major Star Wars character, doing a fake Wedge figure, as cool as I think some of us think it would be, is just really not in the cards. But, luckily we have things like Wikipedia to track this kind of stuff, and so we'll always know about him, but the chance of merchandise, pretty slim. And then coming number one on our list, of course, is Princess Leia in her Jabba Palace slave gear, prisoner gear. I don't think I'm allowed to call her slave gear because that's, not politically correct anymore. And that's basically it. As cool as this character is, the powers that be look at this figure, especially calling her a slave, and, I get it. I mean, there's been slavery for tens of thousands of years, but in modern culture, that has a very different connotation. And so because of that, as much as we all love this look of Princess Leia, there's not going to be merchandise of her, even though we've had merchandise of her in the past. It's one of those things. I mean, even Carrie Fisher, before she passed, thought it was a little odd. But, people can still dress up like her, and she'll still have a place in popular culture. But having merchandise of her, even merchandise like t-shirts, not just, action figures, is not so much. You're not likely to see this stuff anymore. But that's all right. You can always read Valerian because, that's where Slave Leia came from. And, if you're not reading Valerian, then you'll have a whole other appreciation for Star Wars. But that's an entirely different YouTube video altogether. Go read Valerian. All right. Thanks, guys. I hope you like this channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys around the internet. Thank you.